I'm a dog owner too, so I really do appreciate what you're saying. And to be honest, we do leave the perimeter of some parks and open land. And we don't tend to encourage flora and fauna to grow, like the biodiversity areas. And as you say, sometimes it's particularly difficult to get to the edges. We've done this basically as part of a cross-cutting exercise and to encourage some biodiversity. But, you know, realistically, I really do hear what you're saying. And I think in hindsight, it wouldn't be a bad idea. And this is when you start seeing Andrew shake on the front row when I sort of say something he's not prepared for. I think it would be quite a good idea for us to have some maybe cut-throughs. So we're not going to cut the whole of it, but some areas where you can cross with the dog, so the dog doesn't have to go through long grass.
That's so much. These darts that are on the end of the stems of the grass.
Yeah.
When they're dry, they fly everywhere. And yes, £210 this weekend to get darts out. Earlier last year, we took 18 out of his front paws, which were genuine, and normally the price for clearing the dog's ears is about
we let the grass and we let the flowers grow naturally to actually look what's there. And some of the areas we've got, and Andrew will correct me if I'm wrong, have actually worked very well. Other areas, but we've gone to make them have absolutely looked an absolute awful, and it really hasn't worked. So we've gone back and cleared those.
Yeah,
but
we use the same ground and the same path as that gentleman. I've not seen anything really that...
Okay, if it is just grass, Lorraine, what we will do, we can get that cut. But what we've tried to do is, when you leave an area, and you leave it for a while, we do encourage, in some of the areas that we've got some in Chadwell, we've got some areas, they come up, they look beautiful, and it's just wild flowers. What we don't do is actually specifically seed them to grow, we want them to be natural, but there are areas that we've left, and they've been an absolute...
Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, good evening, panel. I'd like to ask the leader of the council, John Kent. The question is in two parts, actually. Are you going to support the residents of Little Thurrock against the company Anderson, who want to erect 21 warehouse units on the old combine pallet site on the Globe Works? And the second part is there are many warehouses standing empty already on the Globe Works. Why do we need more?
Okay, the planning officer in the front row there, because I don't know the detail of it. Lee, do you want to just...
Yes, no problem.
On that?
Yes, the application I think you're referring to...
Stand up.
The application I think you're referring to is the top end of Towers Road, is that right?
On the wrong part?
Yeah, we have, with the development corporation, the Thurrock Development Corporation, have a planning application in for that particular proposal. We, as a council, responded to that planning application probably just before Christmas, I think, maybe in October. The role of the council is to respond as a strategic consultee. In other words, we can only respond on matters of just pure policy principle rather than matters of detail. But nevertheless, the council did actually object to that planning application. The reason being the application area is split into effectively two halves. One half is actually designated as being proposed for housing under the council's local development framework. So the plan and policy for the future as it is shows that side as a section of housing. So on that ground, we've actually objected to it as a council, and that response goes to the development corporation, and that's obviously the response from the planning committee themselves. There was also a concern that that number of warehouses, that number of units, would actually attract HGV traffic into Town Road, into the area. So there was a twofold objection. That's obviously now in the hands of the Development Corporation, and it's down to them effectively to weigh that up.
All the help that he needs to make sure that he is finding a corner. But with all those things, the best advice for residents is to attend the planning committee when it goes to DC, to write in and to do all those sorts of things.
Which we do myself.
Where is it due to go? Do you know?
Where the old car...
No, sorry, where
I think that application's only just come in. There is an application that came about 2 weeks ago for 2 storage containers on the site. That's on the left.
That's next door.
That's next that is being looked at again. There is mechanisms in place that can allow applications that would otherwise be decided by officers to be taken up to the planning committee, and that's.
But no one can move on because there isn't a retirement complexes in the area to take them picked in. I've moved from one big house down to downsize to a bungalow, but I need to downsize once again because of the family situation. And there is nothing, no complexes of a nature that suit me to downsize.
Regeneration and broader pain is the direction that covers that. But we do have some work going on at the moment. We're looking at exactly that issue, and it's not the answer today, but in the next couple of months we'll have a report looking at sheltered housing, retirement housing, not only in Thurrock but also the rest of South Essex, because very often people want to move within or just to the next local communities and where their families are. So we're doing some work across the board. We have quite a lot of sheltered housing in the borough, but it's not always good enough. We have some extra care schemes that aren't good enough. So we're looking at how do we get that into perspective to get a good service that people will want to move into. I think at the moment some people will only move in when they've got no other choice. And actually, we understand what a sheltered housing complex might look like, what modern care looks like in terms of allowing people to have their own home, but within a complex where care is provided on an as-you-need-it basis. And I think Elizabeth House, which is being built on there now, will be a fantastic facility when it's built. We have to look at how many of those do we need, what are the needs of the population. And I think you're absolutely right that there is a generational shift, and we have too many people that are staying in the larger family homes, which actually we need to release in the council's housing stock as well as in the private sector stock. So I think we're aware of the issues, don't have all the solutions yet, but we're doing some work which we'll be bringing back to members over the next 2 or 3 or 4 months, and that's partly looking at our housing strategy overall. But there's some particular work being done on sheltered and supported housing for the elderly and how we provide that in a much better way than perhaps we have. So